During the Great Depression, when there was no work in cities and towns, many Australians turned to fur trapping to make a living. Now in Tasmania, the controversial fur trade has been revived in an effort to control the growing number of wild possums. It sparked renewed interest in a unique part of the state's heritage, and that's the mountain huts, where the hunters and trappers worked during the winter. Martin Cudahy reports from the highlands of Tasmania.
The steep highlands of Tasmania are a bushwalker's paradise. Rugged ranges and winding creeks traverse the landscape of the Western Tiers. But these men aren't out here to take in the scenery. They want to preserve a unique slice of Tasmanian history.
The average person out there is ignorant of the fact that this history even exists.
These are quite important buildings. Really, they don't exist anywhere else in their current form in Australia.
Mountain huts represent a way of life rapidly fading from living memory. A century ago, hundreds of rough and ready huts and sheds were erected throughout the wilderness. Now, a dozen or so remain. They offered shelter from the elements and a place to cure the skins of native animals.
Oh, geez, that's a beautiful fur. Make it be nice in a rug, that fella.
Basil Steers was one of the last trappers. He spent almost every winter of his adult life in the highlands, snaring possums and wallabies. Sometimes his son Philip would go with him.
Do you ever think you'd like to take up trapping like your dad?
Not full time.
There you go, Phil. How does that look?
Today, for the first time since he was a boy, Phil Steers returned to one of the huts his father built on the February Plain.
Yeah, this end really strikes you, because that, it's what it was. The netting wasn't there. We didn't worry about the birds to start with, but bloody hell, yeah. To come back and to see the hut built is, it's pretty special. They have done a terrific job.
Phil Steers remembers helping his father build the crude structures. Sometimes it would only take a weekend.
They were very important, but they didn't have to be Taj Mahal.
And they're not.
And they're not, no, as you can see.
The team that's helping to protect these buildings is the Mountain Huts Preservation Society. It was formed when they started to fall down to conserve the remains and preserve this part of Australia's history.
Many people, including governments and government agencies, have kind of pushed it into the background and not given it what it was due, I believe.
The man who started the Preservation Society is traditions historian Simon Cubitt.
The value of these buildings is that they are quite a unique response to our Tasmanian climate, and in many ways I would argue they're more important in a heritage sense than Georgian sandstone buildings.
8 huts have been nominated for heritage listing, but none of them have been assessed, and it's not a priority.
Some of the huts that have been nominated for more than a decade. Is that good enough?
No, far from it.
A lot of the protected structures are 150-year-old sandstone buildings and stately homes. But the head of the Heritage Council, Michael Lynch, insists there's no preferencing.
I don't know that it's a matter of the huts being more important or less important than sandstone buildings. I think that they are important in their own right.
Most of them are on public land. Some are in the World Heritage Area and come under the jurisdiction of the Parks and Wildlife Service. But Michael Lynch insists the real reason they aren't on the register is a lack of money and time.
At the level of resourcing that we've got here now, it would take us somewhere between 40 and 50 years to assess all of those places in the backlog.
Some huts on private land could get a new lease on life and once again provide a base for hunters. In October, the Tasmanian government introduced legislation that will once again allow the commercial harvest of possums. They won't be slaughtered for meat, but furs and skins will start being sold shortly.
People have got to realise it's not... it shouldn't be politically incorrect to wear fur.
Why not?
Well, there's a sustainable use for these animals. And as I said, if you're leaving them on the ground to rot, they're not doing anyone any good.
Right, good luck. The head of Tasmania's Field and Game Association is Peter Dark. He believes the numbers need to be controlled.
They do damage to trees. Look, there's a limit on the number of all wildlife, and there's a food chain, really, and this fits into it.
Whether or not the huts once again become a base for the fur trade remains to be seen. But Philip Steers is certain he won't be spending his winters in the Highlands.
It's not something that that I'd be overly happy about going back and reliving. We had it pretty tough, not as tough as a lot of other people, but it's certainly a lot harsher than what I've become accustomed to.
Martin Cudahy reporting.